That black yo magic. That black yo magic. That black yo magic.
Hello everyone, it's your girl Florence and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my very first video and I'm so excited to start this YouTube journey with you guys. I've been wanting to do YouTube for a long time, but the timing has just not been right. I was busy with work, school, but now that I'm done with nursing school and I'm officially a registered nurse, yes, I passed my NCLEX last week and I'm officially a registered nurse. Since I passed my NCLEX on the first try, I decided to share with you guys 5 tips to help you pass the NCLEX on the first attempt as well. But before I get into the 5 tips, I want to give a brief overview about the NCLEX and how the exam is. The NCLEX is the license examination for licensed practice nurses and registered nurse. I took the registered nurse exam because that's the license that I was going for. The test ranges anywhere from 75 to 265 questions, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was shortened to 60 to 130. The NCLEX is a computer adaptive exam, which means that the difficulty of the next questions depend on how you perform in the previous question. There isn't a numerical score. The computer just shuts off and determines if you passed or failed anywhere between that minimum questions or the maximum questions. Now let's get into the 5 tips. The first tip is pick your resources. There are a ton of resources out there to help you prep for the NCLEX, so make sure you do your research and pick the resource that works best for you and your study style. You also want to make sure that you don't pick too many resources because the content could clash and it can cause some confusion for you. I chose to go with 3 resources: UWorld, Mark Clemic Lectures, and Nurse Achieve. I feel like these 3 resources together was the key to helping me pass the NCLEX. I don't think I would have passed if I only used one of those resources. UWorld is absolutely amazing. It looks just like the NCLEX. The setup and the layout is exactly like the NCLEX, so it gives you that advantage on test day. The questions on UWorld, yes, it's a little bit harder than the NCLEX, but I feel like it's only because on the NCLEX, the questions are straightforward. So you still need to know the same amount of content that you would need for the UWorld questions. UWorld is strictly a question bank. It has over 2,000 questions, and I chose the package that had 2 assessment tests. The assessment test tests your readiness for the NCLEX by giving you 100 questions. UWorld is also amazing because it has amazing rationales. The rationales are very detailed. It has pictures, it has diagrams, it has charts. So make sure you are writing down those rationales and you read through those thoroughly, especially if you got the question wrong. You should be reading them whether you got it right or wrong, but if you get it wrong, make sure that you do read them and take notes. The next resource that I used was Mark Clemic. When I first started using UWorld, I realized that since it was only questions, I was getting questions wrong because I kind of lacked the content because I've been out of nursing school for a while. So Mark Clemic kind of helped me brush up on those content because he breaks down a lot of the nursing topics into very simple and clear words to understand. So I utilized that content background to help me answer my UWorld questions. The last resource that I used was Nurse Achieve. Nurse Achieve has questions, it has content, and it has computer adaptive tests. So you're able to sit down, take the test, and it shuts off when it determines that you pass or fail, just like the NCLEX. That was the only feature that I used on Nurse Achieve, just the computer adaptive testing, and I took a few of those, and it kind of gave me confidence on test day because when I was doing the exams on Nurse Achieve, I was doing well on them. So Nurse Achieve will let you know if you failed, you passed, and when you do pass, it'll tell you if you slightly passed, if you passed, or you had a solid pass. So you want to make sure you are aiming for a solid pass because it will give you that confidence on test day. I'll put the link down below to access their 30-day free trial. The next tip is make a study schedule. Once you have your resources, once you have your test day, make a schedule for yourself and just put down on each day what you want to cover, how many questions you want to do. You can also schedule in rest days or days that you can't study, just to kind of keep you on track and hold you accountable for your studying. The next tip is to organize your notes. I use a 5-subject notebook and I put in different sections based on the NCLEX topics. I also highlighted, went back and read through it a couple of times, and it pretty much helped me remember a lot of things that I kept forgetting or a lot of content that I was weak in. The next tip is to practice long question sets. I know personally I did a lot of like 20 questions, 30 questions, sometimes 10. That's amazing, that worked for me, but the NCLEX isn't like that. You should be prepared to take 130 questions or 265 questions depending on when you take it. So make sure you are doing those long sets to kind of get you prepared for that. The last tip is do not forget your lab values and do not forget your medication math. You are expected to know the lab values for the NCLEX. They will not be given. You also want to know which labs are critical and what to do if those lab values are too high or too low. Medication math is also on the NCLEX. Most people get at least 1. So you want to make sure you memorize your formulas and know exactly how to execute those questions. Before I end this video, I want to talk a little bit about my NCLEX experience in the Pearson Vue trick. I studied for the NCLEX for about 2 months, but looking back, I probably would have limited that to about 4 to 6 weeks because I did find myself getting really burnt out and tired of studying by about week 6. So 4 to 6 weeks is my recommendation. On the day of my test, I got there a little bit early. My test was scheduled for 4 p.m. I got there around 3:15, 3:20, and they was able to check me in and go straight in. As soon as I sat down, my anxiety was on 1,000. Like I felt like I didn't remember anything anymore. My anxiety was completely taken over. But I did take a moment to just take a pause for about 2 minutes before I began, and that really helped me kind of calm down before I started the test. While I was taking the test, I couldn't really gauge how I was doing. There was very few questions that I was confident on, but a lot of the questions I was able to narrow down to those 2 answer choices, and I didn't really know which one was right. So I kind of just went with like the best guess that I had. I ended up getting the full exam, so yes, I went all the way to 130 questions. And after 60, my anxiety was in 1,000 because I wasn't expecting to go past 60 because I had a conversation with God about stopping at 60 and just getting it over with. But when it did go past 60, my anxiety just could not handle it. So I did have to take a minute. I did have to go to the bathroom, take a break, regroup, pray, and come back. And that really helped set the tone for the rest of the exam because I felt like from that point on, or from that break, I was able to focus a little bit more. I was using my board, and even when I didn't know the questions, I was really going through each answer choices and just talking it through and picking the best one. And it did end up working out in my favor because I passed the exam. So don't be nervous or don't let your anxiety take over if you do go past 60 questions because you still have a chance to pass. That only shows that you're doing well enough, because if you wasn't doing that well, it would have shut off and you would have failed. So just keep going. Don't let your anxiety take over and keep pushing through. Make sure you read each question very carefully and narrow down and pick the best choice that you can. You're not gonna get every question right on the NCLEX. So I did do the Pearson Vue trick. This trick is all over YouTube. A lot of people do it. It's said to be 99% accurate. I'm not really sure about the numbers, but it did work for me. So I finished my test at around 6:15. I got the email around that time, and I waited about 2 hours to do the trick. Make sure that you do watch videos and make sure that you're doing the trick properly, because I did it wrong the first time and I went to complete panic mode. I was with my friends and I was like, oh my God, I failed. I didn't get the good pop-up. Like, this can't be it. Like, I gotta take this test over now. And then I realized that I did it wrong, and then I did it correctly and I got the good pop-up. So make sure that you do know how to do it, because you don't want to cause additional anxiety upon yourself. If you do decide to do the Pearson Vue trick, please bear in mind that if you don't get the good pop-up, because I know people that got the bad pop-up and they made the 48-hour wait for their results a lot harder, because now you're sitting there thinking that you failed when you probably didn't. So make sure you decide wisely whether or not you want to do the trick. That is it for this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in my next video.